Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey, welcome back to Daily Dose Radio. Today we're looking at Psalm 118, and the verses are going to be verses 10 through 12 today. In 10 through 12, things change a little bit. Now, we still have the repeating phrases. As a matter of fact, we have 2 more sets of repeating phrases in this particular section. This one we're going to see is a little bit more negative than what we've had in the past. It changes because the enemy shows back up again. We've not really talked about the enemy for a while now, but we have the enemy here in 10 through 12. Let's just review. Psalm 118, give thanks to the Lord for he is good. It's our opening statement, which is repeated at the end of the psalm. His mercy endureth forever. That's the first repeating phrase that we see. It's in 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's an important one. This is all about the Lord's mercy. Verse 5, my favorite verse in this psalm, from the pit of distress, from the muck, from the bucket, I called upon the Lord, and he answered me and set me in a large place. Then we have 6 through 9, and we had the Lord is for me as a repeating phrase, and we had that phrase, it's better or it's good to trust in the Lord rather than to put confidence in, and then we have men or princes. So we have that phrase that repeats, it's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in. That phrase repeats twice. Now we come to 10 through 12, and we have this idea of being compassed about. We're surrounded. That's the verb that's being used here. All around me, compassed about me, surrounding me, are the enemy. Now let's read 10 through 12. All nations compassed me about, but in the name of the Lord I will destroy them. They compassed me about, yea, they compassed me about, but in the name of the Lord I will destroy them. They compassed me about like bees. They are quenched as the fire of thorns, for in the name of the Lord I will destroy them. Well, did you hear anything repeat in that group of verses? Of course you did. Yeah, they compassed. That word compassed or surrounded is they surrounded me in verse 10. They surrounded me twice in verse 11. They surrounded me in verse 12. So we have it 4 times. And then the other repeating phrase here is, in the name of the Lord, I will destroy them. That phrase occurs once in verse 10, once in verse 11, and once in verse 12. So 2 back-to-back linked together in these verses, repeating phrases that we have in all 3 verses. 4 times for the compassed me about idea or surrounded me idea in 3 verses, 4 times in 3 verses, and then in the name of the Lord I will destroy them 3 times in 3 verses. So you see the importance that he's putting on this, and why is it that the enemy is surrounding, and why is it that they are being destroyed? The mercy of the Lord. Remember, that's the subject of this psalm. We have the full flavor of it in verses 1 through 5, and 5 opens the door to the distress. And the distress is now described in 10, 11, and 12. That is, the nations. They compass me about. Like bees, they compass me about. These are the enemies of the people of God. And they're swarming. So you get the idea how the bees are swarming all around him. But God's going to throw a bucket of water on this fire of bees. And what's going to happen to them? They will be destroyed. So the enemy, not only of the people of God, but of God himself, are surrounding the worshiper. And the worshiper is saying, yet I will not fear. What can man do to me? Remember, that was said just a few verses earlier. The distress was described a few verses earlier. Well, it was, introduced. Now it's being described. And so I'm not afraid. I'm at rest. Even though the enemy surrounds me, I know that the Lord will do the job that he's promised to do. All right, I hope you'll join me again tomorrow on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.